We are here with Hayden Lee on the Decode podcast. Hayden is a high school student currently hailing from New Jersey. He is kind of a prodigy with AI. That's how I would describe him. He was an esteemed speaker at Panpac. That's where I was first introduced to him. And I was kind of blown away at the way you were able to carry yourself and the information you presented at that conference. You actually totally belonged, and everyone said so. You were quite a hit. So thank you for joining us and sharing your time with us here. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I mean, first things first, I gotta say I got some decent imposter syndrome already, both in terms of the humor that's been tossed around by Sean and Daniel, but otherwise I'm pretty comfortable sitting where I am here. So yeah, thanks for having me.
You don't even know what
no
I
pressure,
texted
but you're the first guest that I'm old enough to be your father. So they always joke around that I'm the old guy, but actually I'm actually feeling that way now.
In this case, it's actually true. That was one of the things that happened there is I think everyone felt older when he took the stage, and I was like, okay, great. I guess everyone was thinking back to what they were doing in high school, and it very likely wasn't presenting at a technical conference. So one of the most prestigious ones that I've been to. So it was pretty impressive.
Dial it down.
What was your presentation at Panpac on, Hayden? Because not all of us have bosses that are kind enough to send us to tropical island for a week for a
It was a
conference.
decent locale.
Yeah. So for us plebeians that weren't there, what was your talk on there at Panpac?
So it contrary to what Daniel's been making it out to be, it wasn't anything particularly well versed or
cutting
well
edge
articulated, but it was pretty much just a back end kind of view on large language models as a whole, and kind of extended over towards AI, like in a general sense. But large language models are those like ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, like those services. And so I was pretty much just explaining what exactly goes on behind the curtains and behind all the that's a great question, or behind all the agreements that it makes with you, even when you're clearly wrong.
Yeah. I think Sean and I could probably speak to that a bit. Both fancy ourselves a bit of vibe coders, and those agreements are really frustrating in that environment because it's like that can cause your system to crash, right? Like,
that's
I'm
why
sorry,
Sean
I
likes
missed
it.
that.
He's taught his to actually just kind of worship him. It's not surprising.
I don't know. You can just have memories now and they just upload it. I have a question for you though. I was thinking about this earlier as I'm building now, the new phrase is Agentic AI, right? And I'm building it into my program, but I almost feel like I'm, and I guess I should first preface this with how familiar are you with Agentic AI?
Well, I mean, that's rather a vague question. I mean, I'm understand it. I kind of know what it is. I mean,
because what I've been
do you have
doing,
any of it live yet, Sean? Are you actually using any of the AGI?
Yeah. So what I realized though by using this, right? Like I'm building this separate almost LLM with a custom memory bank, right? That it refers to while we talk, right? And then there's these tools aspects of it, right? But I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost limiting the ability for it to think outside the box. And by doing so, I'm really restricting to what it should, what you're capable of if you were to prompt into a Claude code in itself and give it a question and be able to look at a database query from there, for example. Am I wrong on that? Or am I just building this agentic a little bit off as far as like limiting its factors?
I need to ask you a couple of questions first to clarify then. So first things first, are you using any sort of API to run your LLM, or are you training it from scratch?
I give it a 30,000 token limit window for API calls to Claude Code.
Oh, to Claude Code. Okay. And so essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to make your own custom chatbot that's more adapted to you.
I'll give you I'll tell you how it works. So I want to build a virtual production manager, right? I've given it the skill set of my employees, what they're qualified in each task, but also, are they a novice? Are they an expert? Are they training, right? So it's kind of 3 stages of that. and then unqualified, which would be the fourth. But then also from there, we have different people. Some people are able to work in certain departments as needed, right? So I've given it that
You're
memory.
building your own virtual twin with this?
I'm trying to.
Yeah, but smarter,
I'm
but with
trying to.
intelligence.
That remembers, right? It doesn't forget.
Okay.
That's the beauty of it. Like we can actually. So I'll have it give this example. What was the most profitable job today, or what today earlier? I noticed that we are quoting jobs sometimes for 2 hours on the surface mount line, but they're taking on average anywhere from 4 to 10, depending on different factors of how many unique parts are being loaded, right? Like all this different data set that we have inside my system. And so I just sent a simple query to it, right? Prompt. And I said to it, can you review, are any jobs that we're quoting 2 hours or less on the surface mount line, are any of those actually being achieved, right? And then it hit its token limit. So then I cleared all of our chat and tried to refresh it through it. And then it gave me like kind of a response that wasn't, if I were to actually put that same prompt into Claude Code that could see the entire database, that knows my entire structure, it would have given me an exact response, right? It wouldn't have been quick, but it would have given me an exact response. And I almost feel like right then and there, when it gave me that, I was like, I feel like I'm limiting by doing that, right? Without giving it full API access, but then who knows how much that costs versus just prompting it in a PowerShell or some type of terminal.
This is a big can of worms that I got to unpack. I'll give you guys bullet points that I'm going to be discussing. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the token limit. The 30,000 token limit, it's not a lot. And a big issue that modern AI use cases have is actually the inference cost. And what I mean by inference cost is the continued cost of usage of running it, continuing to use the servers or continuing to use compute. Because when you're considering making any sort of a modern day AI system, there are two main costs that you have to account for. The first one is inference cost, which is the runtime. And the second one is the training cost, aka like the upfront cost to actually get your model running. The upfront cost is negligible, and it's really the inference cost that gets you. And 30,000 tokens really is not that much, especially if you're dealing with a data set that applies for an entire company. You'll run through that really, really quickly. The second thing I want to talk about is RAG, also known as Retrieval Augmented Generation. And if you've never heard of that before, then it's something I suggest looking into, because essentially what it does is it allows for any sort of AI to go ahead. I'm going to use the blank whiteboard as like a
Perfect.
Basically, you can have, like, let's say a data set, right? And you have 10 rows of data points. RAG pretty much just lets the AI extract directly from that. So instead of scrounging around and looking at isolated data points out of context, RAG allows for the AI to just genuinely extract it. So it helps reduce hallucinations a lot. I did actually have one thing that I think is going to be really interesting for you guys. I don't know if I can share my screen, but I'll open the tab. Technically, this isn't under any NDAs, so I should be okay sharing this. And what I'm trying to show you guys here is it's essentially a demo that I constructed for this one company that's based near me. It's called Powerfleet. It's a logistics company. So the Powerfleet demo, it pulls using RAG exactly everything from the spreadsheet. So there's drivers, fuel transactions, maintenance records, safety events, vehicles. These are all fake, but if you were to go ahead and launch it, you ask it any sort of question, you can type in anything. It'll go ahead, it'll make a procedurally generated UI, and everything that's on it will be exactly pertaining to the spreadsheet. So if you wanted to go ahead and, there's a couple of sample questions down there that are...
Who's the best driver?
That's too simple, but I'll put that.
We'll see.
I've done a lot of edge case testing with this, and it can answer questions fairly well.
I wonder if it would know if Daniel actually audited other companies.
So this brings me on to my next point, and that is data integrity. A lot of companies that I know, actually pretty much every single company that I know nowadays, has a wealth of data. They have incredible amounts of data. They don't really know how to monetize it, but they have huge, vast amounts of data. However, not every company has data that is easily usable. So a question arises whether, let's say that someone's trying to make an application. In this case, I'll use Sean, but not directly. I'm not directly addressing Sean, but for example, let's say that Sean has, I don't know, 10 terabytes worth of plain text data, which is huge. But his data is in a way that isn't easily manageable. So you could have like, let's say, instead of PCB faults by date, you just have PCB faults and then it be sequentially ordered. So you have to kind of guess when. I mean, that's a really bad example, but basically my point is that data integrity matters a lot more than how much data you have. And one of the biggest problems that I've seen so far, and this has been evident when it comes to training modern day LLMs, is that you have to balance, I think it's three. It should be three core things. The first thing is compute. The second thing is data. And the last thing is parameters. If any one of these three things are lacking, then it acts as a bottleneck, which is, I mean, kind of obvious. But you'd be surprised to hear that actually, if you have too many parameters, aka if your model is too large for the amount of data that you have, it'll actually perform worse. It's kind of like RAM. If you've ever played a video game and you just try to allocate a bunch of RAM to get higher FPS, more isn't always better for RAM. It's good to an extent. So I think what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and address Sean directly. So, Sean, your program, from what I can understand, is, first of all, I don't have access to your data, so I have no way of knowing what the integrity looks like or how easily usable it is. But first things first, I think that 30,000 tokens is way too little, and you should definitely consider looking into RAG and also looking into budget, because you're going to have to spend some money. You're going to have to spend either on the cloud, or you're going to have to spend on electricity for your home servers.
Well, that's the thing is like I have a 3 million context token window, I think with just the PowerShell, right? Just the regular. So it's almost like, why am I limiting myself to this when I can just do it in the PowerShell and then create some page where I can view whatever data set I wanted to view in the first place?
My one of the best approaches that I've had, though, is to not rely on context windows at all. Meaning that every single fresh tab, I mean, that's actually a bad way of wording it. Kind of dividing it almost like the way that Claude or GPT does it. What they do is they'll have large chats. So if, let's say, suddenly you woke up at 3 a.m. and you had a divine urge to go ahead and uncover the secrets of the Big Bang. So you go on a 3-hour long journey down the abyss that is Wikipedia alongside with GPT. Then what they do is they don't like for future chats, for chats outside of that one, they don't go ahead and parse the entire thing. They just summarize it. So that could be something you could look into. Summarization and making things a lot more compact is nice.
Well, that's what I've been doing at the end of every day lately. Is I've been updating the markdown files. You know,
Manually?
yeah. Well, I type it, yeah, manually.
Okay. There should also be a lot of open source GitHub software. I can link you guys to it after the podcast, but there's a lot of open source GitHub stuff that drastically reduces, especially for Claude, token count. I've heard up to 95 to 98%. Yeah, it's insane. I think the 98 one is for Claude Code, but if I'm not mistaken, which I might be, so don't get your hopes up, the 95% does also apply to regular chats.
Why would I want to reduce its power?
You're not reducing the power. You're reducing the amount of space that it takes up. So with the same power, you're able to get 20, 50 times the amount of context, the amount of content as well. Because by reducing the token count, you're not reducing the amount of information that's there. You're just kind of like encrypting it almost, or you're just compressing it.
Instead of getting your 400 horsepower out of a gas guzzling V8, you're getting it out of a fuel sipping turbocharged 4-cylinder.
Yeah. That's a good way to think about it.
Elias, you should brag about the app you've been vibe coding.
Yeah, I mean, Sean kind of inspired me because I was looking at ERPs and kind of what was commercially available, and none of them had all the features I wanted, or they were going to take a ton of work to kind of get them to where they were perfect for our operation. And then they're spendy, right? Not just an initial expense, but a recurring expense. So I kind of set out on that journey, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And it's just, I found it to be like intoxicating. I just want to keep doing it and adding more things to it. And I've kind of started to light up our production floor to where now I have, machines reporting back into the ERP and giving information in terms of utilization, average processing time,
he wasn't
uptime,
waking up.
downtime.
He wasn't waking up at 3 a.m. to research the Big Bang. He was waking up at 3 a.m. to keep vibe coding because he couldn't get enough.
But yeah, so it's been a cool journey. I've got a lot of I keep saying like there hasn't been something that I've thought of that hasn't been able to be put into practice. Like every kind of feature or module or whatever I've conceived, like I've been able to accomplish it. But as it grows, I'm starting to learn that, maybe some of the stuff I did early on, I didn't do the best way. And now it's kind of starting to crumble underneath some of the newer features. So it's this evolution. But yeah, Sean and I use slightly different environments. Like I started out with anti-gravity, and that's where I've done all my work, whereas I know Sean's in Claude Code. So we always kind of bicker back and forth which one's better.
I started with GPT-3, right? Then I went to 3.5, and then I switched over to Grok for a little bit when Grok 3 came out, and then GPT-5 for a little bit, and then immediately tried Claude Code, and it's the best one I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. Smokes the rest.
Elias, if I could really quickly just give you a tale of caution, if that's all right.
He won't listen. I can tell you already, because
I don't listen to you. I'll listen to Hayden.
All right, okay.
I'm flattered. I really am. It's incredibly easy to develop a hubris when it comes to vibe coding, because you suddenly, in 3-4 years' time, have completely removed the cliff that was the entry to computer coding and production level coding. Oftentimes, what I'll see a lot of companies do, and they'll end up miserably failing, is they'll go ahead, they'll use AI as solutions, or when it comes to vibe coding, to patch little tiny holes. But I like the submarine point of view that we had before, because it kind of connects with this. It's almost as if you've had shrapnel on your submarine from a nearby exploding torpedo or a nearby exploding mine, and now you're leaking water, and the AI serves as duct tape from the inside, where the pressure of the water can still enter. It serves as a temporary solution, and if you're really good at vibe coding, you might get it to a flex seal, but in time it's going to fail most of the time from what I've seen. So for individual use cases, especially ones that don't require 100% accuracy and can also have human supervision with human intervention if need be, those systems I've seen work very well. I just urge you not to get overconfident, because I've seen way too many people start to develop this, I guess, overconfidence.
Probably what I just exhibited, right? I mean, because being able to think something and say it and then see it work, at least initially, it does, you kind of, you do gain confidence for sure. But I've also started to see things, can break too, right? And as it scales up, adding one thing breaks another, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm starting to see that.
He does prompt pretty good prompts to verify that it's coded correctly, that the security is there. So he'll actually like pit it against itself. I kind of like that you do that quite often. I think what he's missing, in my opinion, is when I created it, right? So it was an SQL, PHP, MyAdmin, right? And I understood all of the tables and columns that were being created and the row data that was inside of those. And he has completely skipped all that. Not saying he doesn't have to, right? You can just simply say, hey, this isn't getting the data from there. But I feel like without understanding how that back end is working, he's missing a lot about how it's actually going if there is an issue.
I also do think that it's a flawed practice when it comes to, I mean, prompt engineering is good only to an extent, because if an AI makes a mistake, let's say in this case Claude, and to my understanding, anti-gravity just uses a lot of different frontier LLM models. It's not its own proprietary model. But anyways, let's say you're coding something with Claude and you make a project. It's not too complicated right now, but it messes up and you've got a couple of bugs on your hand. I really don't think it's a wise idea to go ahead and try to recursively reinforce the problem that arose, because it's like asking a junior engineer who doesn't know something to go ahead and fix the problem that they unknowingly made. I mean, they don't know that it's a problem. They didn't really understand that it was a problem to begin with. Even though understanding is obviously something that should be used sparingly when it comes to AIs. But prompt engineering it's important not to get too reliant on it, because it's good, but it's not a deal saver.
So you're right about anti-gravity. It has several LLMs available. Obviously, Gemini's flagship, which is I think 3.1 now, and then there's Claude models in there. What is it a thing? Like, because I've thought about this, but I don't know if there's any validity to it. But what about pitting models against each other, having one model critique another model's plan?
That's been done before. It's actually, there are mixed results. Some people have reported that it's really, really nice. Some people have reported that it's not amazing. I think that when it comes to the people who have reported not too amazing things, you have to understand that at its core, every single LLM uses the same architecture, and that is the transformer architecture. Basically, every single LLM, despite their training data or despite their instructions, are all based off being a statistical prediction model. And through that, they're all inherently flawed. Really, I mean, okay, this is kind of like conspiratorial, but have you heard about like billions being pumped into ChatGPT or all these failing, quote unquote, failing AI companies that have horrible, horrible financials, but just continuously being pumped? They're not
Yeah.
going to be profitable anytime soon as well. They're all building off of the same flawed architecture. I mean, I could go on about this for hours. Okay, wait. Before I get too carried away, I'm going to organize my thoughts. So first thing I want to talk about is this like conspiratorial thing. And then I also want to talk about the future of AI where I see it. So I'll make this brief. It'll be like 5 minutes. So just bear with me.
Take your time.
I personally think the reason why there's so many like private equity firms or independent, I guess like quote unquote independent groups investing into these AI companies isn't because they see promise in the AI. It's because hundreds of millions of people have used
Data
this
collection.
on a daily basis. So let's say that everything goes crashing down, right? Let's say the bubble pops and these companies go bust. What you're left with is companies like Microsoft gaining access to all the questions, every single health question, every single financial question, every single stupid question you're too embarrassed to search up. Every single one of those, or I mean, at least a generalized data set of all of those, is brought over to them. I think that's why there's been so much investment going on, but that's just me. Anyways, moving on to my second thing, the future of AI. So, like I was mentioning before with the transformer architecture, personally, dead end. This guy named Charles LeCun, he's pretty much, you can think of him as the godfather of AI. He also thinks the same. And really what I think that we should be going towards is like a biological basis, because for the same amount of compute that the human brain can perform under 20 watts, it takes, I think it's 6 orders of magnitude for the world's best supercomputers right now.
Are
6
you saying
orders of magnitude.
like an implantable? Is that where you're going?
Not quite. I'm meaning more towards mapping out our brain and then translating or transcribing the processes that go on here in the silicon. So it's basically like instructing the computers how to think like a human brain. No, I've not heard of it.
Easier said than done, probably.
Oh yeah. I really don't think I'll see it in my lifetime.
Let me
Please
give
believe
them an example, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the best way it was described to me. So I'm a simple man. So the predictive model that you're talking about, statistical model, right? It works very similar to the way your phone works. So if you type in the word "how,"
The autofill
exactly,
and
exactly
the
like
suggested next word.
exactly, and that's exactly what that LLM is doing in the background. But it doesn't have like a human interpretation part to it, where we could pick up and be like, "That's not," don't use that word there.
That's the. Let me see if I
Like,
can mark
if you're typing, if you start out on your phone with a couple words and then you just start hitting that suggested one over and over and over again, like it'll start out with something that makes sense and eventually it just evolves into complete madness, if you just keep
Hallucinating.
trusting. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna have to go. Okay, I gotta find a marker, but I really gotta show you guys this because I cannot bear this anymore. Basically, gonna keep you guys occupied for a little bit while I go search for a marker.
Yeah, you're fine.
So for Sean, that process is called tokenization, and it's pretty much the way that LLMs break up text. So it usually tends to be like word by word, but it can also be segments of words. It's really complicated, like overly complicated to explain. I would have to spend 30 minutes on it, but from a very high level point of view, it's the way that you parse something. So to give you guys a better fundamental understanding, like let's say that you had the numbers 1984 or 1984-2026. It would be a lot harder to understand those numbers or to remember, quote unquote, those numbers if you're just saying 1984-2026 versus 1984 and 2026. So that's kind of the logic that's going on there. That's what tokenization does. Let me go find a marker. This box should be visible. Okay.
That's a good box for not looking. I'll tell you. I'll give you that. That's pretty good.
Thanks.
There's a no look box right there.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this broke my mind when I first found out about it. But did you know? I mean, actually, before I even get into that, can you guys even can you guys visualize the fourth dimension?
I have varying thoughts upon that, but
try to visualize 1,000, if not 1,000,000. It's impossible. But that's basically what happens inside of every single large language model. And I didn't touch enough on this on my Panpac talk because I didn't understand it at the time. Very simply put, if you have, let's say, I think this is inverted, so it's going to be hard to see, but if you have woman, so let's say this is a crudely draw woman, very stereotypical woman right there with a skirt. Yes, with a skirt. This is a woman, right? And let's say that this is a man, so no skirt. The same distance that it takes for man and woman will be the same distance for king and queen, the words. Okay, so stick with me. These will be the same distance. But not only man and woman are the same distance as king and queen, man and king are the same distance as woman and queen. So imagine this for every single, when they talk about training a large language model, this is what they do. It establishes connections between every single word. And this goes on in like thousands of dimensions. So I'm not talking like it's not 2-dimensional like this. I'm talking thousands. So not even just this way.
How does it do that with a sentence full of words, right? Like that's 4 words, but how would it do it in like a sentence, you know? Or like one of my crazy prompts that I say to it.
Well,
real quick though, hold on. I got to get your opinion because this came to my head. I got ADD. Elias sometimes will prompt it and actually call it an idiot, and I worry for him sometimes. Is he going to do anything wrong by calling it an idiot?
Is it going to get back at him and
Like, I'm
plant
friendly with
some
mine. I
sort
don't
of
want to. Yeah.
malware?
I am fairly certain that whatever profanities that you use against it will be inconsequential in terms of artificial frustration than a 3-hour long chat with someone who's trying to debug code. Because that let me tell you, when I'm debugging code, I get so frustrated. And especially with the idiots that are out there asking idiotic questions. Like, let's say, for example, I mean, did we go to space? Did we go to the moon? Is the moon real? I think those questions are going to be a lot more infuriating than just calling it an idiot. Because I mean, I get called an idiot all the time, and I'm
Where are you at
John's
with
for
the moon?
sure
Where
asked
you,
it those
Yeah,
where you
questions.
at with
do you
the
want to
moon
go into
landing?
some of those topics?
Do you think we actually landed on the moon in the 1960s?
well, it's can of
It's
worms that
okay
I
if
got.
you do or if you don't. I don't care either way. I have my belief, but I just am curious about yours.
No, I mean, if we're actually being serious, I mean, I believe we went to the moon. I hope we went to the
In
moon. Otherwise,
1960, we went to the moon.
I personally think so. I mean,
Okay.
I'm with you, bud. I
Okay.
believe
Here's
it
the thing.
too.
The
Okay.
Soviets had every reason to point us out on our BS if we were lying. The Soviets had every reason. We were in a Cold War with them, basically. Practically.
Yeah.
Not really. Space race, Cold War.
Yeah.
They had every reason to tell the rest of the world that we were on some BS and we just had used a green screen. They had every reason, but they didn't. They acknowledged it. Why? Why would they do that? I know for sure that if we, the US, found out that the Soviets, quote unquote, went to the moon, but lied about it, or they lied about Sputnik, then we would have 100% pointed out that they're lying. So that
How
just
do you
makes
know?
no sense to me.
You know that they didn't.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
How do you know they didn't say that
Didn't
we
what?
didn't go to the moon?
Well, I mean,
You don't
You know-
find it odd they destroyed all the tapes? You don't find it
I'm
odd
so
some of those
happy.
camera videos? All right, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry.
happy
you
we
know,
went
just for
there.
this one, I'm going to claim that I'm 17, so I'm clueless and I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Smart.
I'm
I told you guys he was
39.
wise beyond his years.
I'm 39 and I still don't know if we landed on the moon.
I mean, that
don't
being
believe
said, though, I mean, every single topic, regardless of what it is, has both pros and cons and debatable. I mean, every single topic is debatable. Is this water good for me? It's debatable. Every single person that's drank water has died.
He makes a compelling argument, Sean.
Just mic dropped you.
Facts.
Basically, this ignore this illegible hieroglyphic European traditional writing right over here. But this over here is basically the gist of AI training. It makes
Now, does that
connectors.
do
I'm
those connectors also run from corner to corner? Does man connect to king and woman connect to queen?
Sometimes, kinda, not really. Yeah, I mean, to an extent. I mean, because man and king to queen, but oftentimes there'll be. It'll just be like relative connections instead of.
I mean,
direct
it's
connections.
2026. They're probably connected. You know, you probably
The one thing I can never understand is, okay, so like I can see, this is a great visualization of how these LLMs are trained, but what is the actual mechanism to initiate this training and to accomplish this training? Like, how are those? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. What kind of IDE or compiler are they using to start this off? Right? You're saying.
yeah, like it's like an onion, right? And you're just peeling those layers away, but there's just so many layers. Like, where does it start?
I'm going to give you guys the best answer ever. and that is that it depends. So you're welcome.
This guy's a riot, Daniel. I'm glad you got him on. This guy's cool.
I say it depends because if we're talking about LLMs in specific, there's already a lot of things. But if we're talking about AI as a whole, then you get into convolutional neural networks, then you get into AOI systems, then you get into image generation systems where people can generate YouTube shorts that are horribly edited. But
So bad.
you know what? I feel like actually I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna abstain on that question because I think that if I were to go in depth on it, I'd start speaking out of my behind. I don't know if I can curse here.
You can.
Okay, I'd start speaking out of my ass. I don't fully know.
Right? Okay, good. That makes me feel better.
Because I can do it, but I don't really know how it works fully. I know that, I know what happens after you initiate the training. I don't know how you actually initiate it, though, if that makes sense.
All right, well, I'll pivot to another question. You're 17 years old. When in your short life did you start having this fascination with LLM and AIs? Like how you obviously have a lot of domain knowledge, like an impressive amount. How long have you been building that for?
I'm not going to go back. I'm going to keep this to 20 seconds. Okay, 6th grade or so is when I started coding Python because my mom is Asian, so she wanted me to take up Python programming for college.
Yeah. Did you learn how to play violin too? You can edit that out if you want.
It was it used to be piano actually for me. I was a piano kid. Kind of sucked at it though. I stopped after 2 years. I stopped so many things. Oh my gosh. I stopped like sports because I had eczema. Anyways, I'm not gonna go trauma dumping about my childhood. Anyways.
So 12 years old.
Yeah, 12 years old. So I was coding, I was Python programming, but it wasn't programming for making stuff. It was more competition geared. So academia based coding, the school competitions, Scratch. And then it evolved into more of it devolved into a disillusionment with the academic system. So already I was having an early life crisis at the ripe old age of 14 when I realized that my coding wasn't going to be useful in the real world and it's just good for competitions. So when I entered high school, I took up quantum physics for my first trimester. And then what ended up happening was through that, I got into quantum computing. And then through that, I got into ML. And that's kind of where it started. ML is for machine learning. Ever since the ML discovery, I joined this one Columbia Science Honors Program thing. It's like science enrichment program. I always get that confused. Where it's basically like a summer camp, like a free summer camp where you can code things and you can make your own things. In there, I made a melanoma detection AOI. So it takes a bunch of images of melanoma and then given a new image, it predicts whether or not the person has melanoma. There was that. And then I kind of took a back rest after a couple of projects on AI. And
Dude, you're making me feel like a failure as a parent. Like, who produced you?
Let me tell you right now, I have my very vast amounts of shortcomings. This is pretty much the only
His mom was at Panpac and everyone else was gushing over him, and she was still coaching him and telling him the things he needed to improve and was not letting his head get too big. She was doing a good job.
I wasn't really listening to her, to be quite honest. I'll be 100% serious right now. She just tagged along because she wanted to go to Hawaii. But I mean, obviously, my mom, so no disrespect to her. But anyways, wow, I said anyways so much. Should take a shot every time I say anyways.
You can't.
If you were to audit or just come in and try to find the flaws in either, Elias's or my systems, what would you prompt?
I'd go ahead and do I have to prompt an AI? Let's say that
you
I
could
do
click around. You could do whatever you wanted. I showed you the domain that you needed to go to.
I would go ahead and I would copy that domain screen, and forward it over to my developer because he's autistic. And I'm being serious here. I hired a couple of autistic developers, and I don't mean this condescendingly. They just see things better than I do.
It's a superpower. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I have a whole LLC for that, where I just help businesses integrate AI. But that's not an ad. But just saying.
Link in the description below.
But that's probably what I do. I just go ahead. I'd ask my developer for a second thought, because I think that the way that I could see things and the way that John could see things, I feel like a third angle is also going to be really nice.
You've earned
Especially-
the right to plug any apps or ventures you have going on, I'd say.
I mean, I don't really have that much that I could share in public. I wish I could, but I really do wish I could, but there's practically nothing. I had to delete I didn't delete it, but I had to hibernate my LinkedIn because I didn't have anything to put on there because everything is under NDA. It's so sad.
It is sad. It's just,
How do you even sign an NDA at like 17?
My dad, he writes it for me. So I work technically under his LLC.
Yeah.
Like all the funds go through it, and then I can buy my own things, but through him. But he signs all the stuff as a legal guardian.
Well, holy smokes, Hayden. This has been a really impressive conversation. I think at 17, you are probably the smartest person we've ever had on the podcast, which is saying a lot because we have some real bright people on here. But I want to invite you back on. Maybe we can do something a little different. We can have producer Paul jump in because he's pretty interested in this space. And then we have a friend, Sean Patterson, who's probably the most visible person in AI within the
EMS
PCBA space. Yeah, EMS space. Would you be game for kind of a 6-pack panel, we'll call it?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, we got it on video, so you're committed to it now. Well, awesome, Hayden. Are you going to unhibernate your LinkedIn page so people can follow what little of your work you can share? Or if somebody wants to get a hold of you for some advice or follow some of your work, is there any way that they can do that?
Oh, yeah. Just email me. That's probably the best way. haydenlee.contact@gmail.com.
Awesome.
I read pretty much every single email there. I also hibernated my LinkedIn because a lot of the kids in my school are really hyper competitive. Like I've heard a lot of reports of people going out of their way to sabotage others. So I just really don't want anybody really knowing what I do.
Yeah, some of the people on there are just like obsessed with how many followers they have, and nobody in this group, but
only people with low follower counts say that type of stuff.
ooh, solid burn.
I really just my short-ish time on LinkedIn, I was on there for like under a year or so, but it just felt so like ingenuine. Everybody was so people that I've seen that have no business being polite online. I mean, these guys are like, they called me slurs before. I mean, I call them slurs too, but like these kinds of people are suddenly a whole different reformed kind of good boy on LinkedIn. They're like, great job, well done, or I had a great time working with X people. It just felt kind of dishonest to me. I value integrity and honesty, so that's kind of why I liked being on this podcast, because I see that you guys are all pretty chill and honest.
Yeah, we try to just be real humans, and I don't know, for whatever reason that's resonated with some people, but
I do
awesome.
like the robot costume idea though for that 6-pack panel.
Are we all going to be in robot costumes?
I want all of us in robot, and I want Daniel to be painted in silver metallic face. Would love.
Are we talking about like just latex paint, like no actual
I don't
costume,
care what form of paint he uses. Lately, he's been rude to me, so I would like him to use lead paint. But he can feel free to use
Rojas paint.
Rojas paint. Yeah, he just takes solder paste and puts it all over his face.
This is devolving quickly. Well, thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in, whether it be on YouTube or your favorite streaming platform. If you could do us a favor and repost, just help us with some distribution. It really goes a long way. And our industry doesn't do a lot of that. So come on, guys, hit those buttons. Until next time, thanks for tuning into the Decode Podcast.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.